At my own wedding, I leaned close to my husband and whispered something in his ear. He heard it, and then he walked to the window and jumped. After he died, everyone asked me what I said, the police, his lawyers, his family, reporters. I said nothing to any of them. I went to prison for 3 years rather than speak a single word. 5 years after his death, a man finally came offering money for that sentence. He wanted to know what kind of words can actually kill a person. The moment I saw him, I felt something unlock in my chest. I had been waiting for exactly this man. The man's name was Vincent Hall, a suspense novelist with some recognition, enough that he'd gotten access to sealed case files through back channels. He knew things about my husband, Carter Hughes, that most people didn't. Carter had been the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. From the age of 40, he spent millions annually fighting the biological clock, assembling a team of specialists dedicated entirely to keeping him young. A man who had thrown everything he had at the idea of not dying. A man like that doesn't end his own life over nothing. Vincent set a stack of cash on the table and looked at me with the expression of someone who had already decided the deal was done. I glanced at it. That's not enough. There's $200,000 there, and I'm a known author. Once I write this, the story goes everywhere. There'll be a bonus when it hits. $500,000, not a cent less. $500,000 for a sentence? Are you serious? I stood up. Safe travels. He wasn't the first person to come looking. He had the most money so far, but I had already set my price, and I intended to keep it. 3 days later, Vincent came back. Bank card, $500,000. One condition, I said. Have lunch with me first. He hesitated, then nodded. Vincent had done his research. He told me what the sealed files contained. Carter's company had been shut down by federal investigators for illegally obtaining human blood. Suspected organ trafficking. The cold storage units in his facilities had held human remains. Carter himself was believed to have been personally involved in procurement. What I can't figure out, Vincent said, is what a single sentence could say to a man like that. A man who had survived the kind of childhood he had, who had built an empire around the terror of dying that would make him choose to die. I lifted a river fish from the water basin on the counter and set it on the cutting board. Whatever killed him was whatever he valued most, I said. You're in luck. This came out of the river this morning. He watched me with his arms crossed. You're not going to distract me with fish. I'm going to tell you the whole story. You paid $500,000. You deserve to understand it. I was 9 years old when my mother got sick. My father worked security for a local company. The salary covered the three of us, barely. When the diagnosis came, stomach cancer, 2/3 removed, chemo, and radiation on a cycle, there was nothing left to cover it with. He spent every saved dollar. Then he sold our home. My mother held on for 3 years. By then, the cancer had spread through her entire abdomen. My father, desperate to keep paying for treatment, had taken a job as a pharmaceutical trial participant for the same company where Carter Hughes was building his empire. 4 years later, my father's liver and kidneys were failing. My mother died anyway. I was 15, and I went to Carter Hughes and asked to be a blood donor. A what? Vincent set down his tea. I explained. Carter had begun his anti-aging experiments with primates, finding that older animals given transfusions from younger ones extended their lifespans by several years. From the age of 35, he replaced his entire blood supply every 2 years with plasma from donors under 20. People who sold him that blood were called blood bags. I was his blood type. Compatibility at 99.9%. I sold my blood to pay for my father's dialysis and my own tuition. 3 years later, I had become severely anemic. I couldn't continue as a blood bag. But I had just turned 18, and Carter had a different kind of arrangement for people in my position. He called them wet nurses. I won't over-explain. The term is literal. Wealthy clients of Carter's operation believed in the restorative value of maternal milk and paid accordingly. I was classified as grade A, being newly 18. Carter kept me for himself. For 2 years, I provided what was required. In exchange, I completed my medical degree and paid for my father's remaining care until he passed. Then I left. I moved to another city. I got married. I built something quiet and mine. Vincent looked up from his untouched tea. I assumed you stayed with him. A wet nurse has a productive window of 2 to 3 years, I said. My body was already heavily depleted. If I had stayed past that window, I would have entered the next stage of Carter's operation, which was, I looked at him evenly. What do you think a man who runs cold storage full of human remains does with people who have outlived their usefulness? Vincent was quiet for a moment. I'll be direct, he finally said. Carter Hughes was surrounded by women. He had every option available to him. Why would a man like that marry someone like you? He said it clinically, like an appraiser quoting a number. Not cruel, just honest in the way people are when they think they're being analytical. That, I said, is exactly the right question. I turned back to the stove. Men like Carter, men who lost their mothers early or never had them properly, develop something that never gets named correctly. It isn't love. It's closer to hunger, an obsession with maternal warmth that they spend their entire adult lives quietly, desperately chasing. I ladled the broth. I was with Carter for 5 years as his wet nurse and 2 more as his companion. I watched him, I studied him. I learned what he needed more than anything else in the world. More than youth, more than money, more than the company he'd built. I set the bowl in front of Vincent. And on our wedding day, I leaned close and told him the truth about what I had been to him. What he actually was. What all of it had actually meant. Vincent stared at the bowl, then at me. That was the sentence? That was the sentence. He picked up his spoon, set it down again. Are you going to tell me what it was? I smiled and sat across from him. Eat first. It took me 7 years to earn those words. You can wait 25 minutes. The fish was good. Vincent ate every bite, and I told him the sentence. I won't repeat it here. Some things lose everything in repetition. What I will say is that it was the truth. A very specific truth, delivered at the exact moment a man was most vulnerable to it. The truth doesn't always comfort. Sometimes the truth is the most dangerous thing you can hand to a person. Carter Hughes spent 40 years and a fortune trying to outrun death. In the end, what stopped him wasn't age. It wasn't illness. It wasn't anything his money could have protected him from. It was 8 words. From the one person who had been close enough, long enough, to know exactly which 8.